All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jake. I'll be your tour guide for today. And I hope everyone has been able to sign in, grab a handout there. If at any time I misspeak, or I do something wrong, or I confuse you, I do these things often, just raise your hand, stop me. I'm happy to clarify or fix things as we go. I'm not a professional ServiceNow trainer. I'm one of you. I'm a UW IT employee. I'm just an enthusiast. Come on in. Please get signed in so you get credit. Grab a handout. Yes. You're not above the law. What I'm going to do is run through our outline for today and a couple slides, and then we'll jump into the demos. So stay with me. If I start to bore you and you drift off and start checking email, I'll ask that you come back and follow along when the time is appropriate. We're going to go through a couple key concepts and some terminology. Then we're going to pop into this new application called the New Call module. Learn a little bit about how we're going to work with service offerings and assignment groups. Learn a little bit about how the system works, and then take a break. By that time, people are thoroughly tuckered out. Take a 10-minute break at about an hour. We'll talk about service requests and incident management. Take another break. And then we'll all come back and talk about some fun stuff at the end. Any questions about my goals here? All right. How many people have had ITIL training, ITIL foundations? So some of these slides will actually bore you, which is a good thing, right? One of the goals of this, I don't know why my screen is off here, but we'll let it slide. You can see what I'm talking about here. We do aim to transform how we manage services through this project. And one thing that we're doing is aligning our work with the needs of the business. And I always thought that this was management speak, but we will literally be doing that as we're working today. We are going to be linking our records to service offerings for metrics. So we'll make sure that we are, in fact, aligned with the business needs. Many of us have had ITIL training. And also, we'll talk a little bit about process owners, people deciding how services are handled. What does that mean for most of us? Well, right now, we're clearly replacing RT with UW Connect. And you might catch me lapsing and saying ServiceNow. Obviously, ServiceNow is the platform we are using, and we're branding it UW Connect. You may also catch me lapsing and using the wrong terminology at times. I might use RT terminology. I hope you understand it's a little confusing for me, just like it will be for you. We're all being asked to learn new tricks and new terminology. And another of our goals is to be more transparent with our customers. So you might notice when we're going through the notification settings and the actual procedures that we're going to be a little more chatty and send out more emails to our customers to be more transparent. That's by design. It has nothing to do with ServiceNow. It has to do with the way we want to run our services. Okay, this may be a review for some of you, but when anything comes in the front door right now, we call them all tickets. For the foreseeable future, we're going to split all of these incoming customer records and call them either requests or incidents, and they'll be classified as such. Request is just that. It's a request for a standard service, predefined approval, or even general information or complaints. I need a router or a computer, or I need assistance logging in. An incident would actually be an unplanned interruption or outage. No internet access or failure of a drive. One thing you might notice from this slide is that someone might call us up with help, needing help logging in, and then through the course of investigation you might realize, oh, they can't log in because there's an outage. That makes sense? So everything's going to come in the front door as a request, and as necessary will be converted to an incident if it's an actual outage. And after we go through a little bit of incident management, I hope you see why you might want to do that. There are a couple extra things you can do as you're managing an actual incident within that process. So just keep these things in mind as we're going through this. Yeah?
Will we have access to this deck?
Yeah, I'll post it. I haven't done it yet. I wanted to make sure the deck was working before I posted it, but I'll put it in our training resources. Yeah. And also, we have a lot of training documentations that are much more comprehensive than this too, but this may be helpful just to be distilled down. We're going to talk a little bit about problem near the end. This is a new concept for most people. A lot of us are just used to causing trouble or creating problems. This is a more formal definition. A problem is a root cause of an incident. So when there's an outage, our challenge is to restore service as quickly as possible. That's all that matters. But it may be advantageous to take knowledge from that incident and create a problem from it, a problem record that we can track over time. The problem record can persist for investigation in the future, but we can still take that incident and resolve it quickly. So we'll show you how to create a problem, And I'll leave it up to you to decide if that's a process you want to use in the future. We're just introducing the concept today. We're going to talk only briefly about knowledge management. How many people use RTFM or other help guides to respond to customers? So the main knowledge sources have been imported into the UW Connect platform so that we can search for knowledge and use that when responding to customers. And also we have the ability to create new knowledge. You can take a response to a customer and promote it into the knowledge workflow if you want, or author articles as well. We're only going to touch on how to use knowledge today. If you wish to author new knowledge for future use, you can learn how to do that through our help documentation. A little bit of etiquette. I like to throw this slide up here because I do want to be very clear. Please stop me if you need help or if I misspoke or something's unclear. Sometimes, though, people go down rabbit holes and say, wait, Jake, you know, my group does X, Y, and Z, and how do I do it in this tool? And I might ask you to wait till the break with a question like that. Does that make sense? If it's a really specific process question. I enjoy those questions, but everyone else might get bored by it, so we'll address those as they come up. Is that okay? I don't want to be unkind. I just want to keep this moving. It's a long 3 hours. I can't make it a short 3 hours, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. All right, so is everyone able to open up a browser, go to uweval.service-now.com and log in with your NetID? I'll just say a word. Please don't suffer in silence. If you get hung up on something, something's not working, ask for help. Bill's in the back there. He's a very helpful person. Some of you may already know that. So I'd like for everyone to try to keep with me as I go through these demonstrations. They may seem a little bit slow at times, but it's really useful if you try to keep up and don't get hung up on anything. Excellent. So here I am in UW Connect. This is a little bit odd. Now it's distressing that I can't see everything. I wonder, I'd have to reboot to fix this, though. You guys all see? I actually have my nav bar at the very bottom here. It might actually be better for people in the back, though, because you don't truly need to see what's at the top of my page. You can trust me that it's just the banner up there. You guys will trust me a little bit on that one? Great. I'm more of a trust but verify kind of guy, but you aren't missing a whole lot here. So at the very top, cut off your screen is the banner and the UW Connect logo. If at any time you want to come back to whatever you have set for your home page, you can just click on that UW Connect logo and refresh your home page. In the very top right, that's just off my screen, hopefully you can see it there above logout, is a global search bar, and we're going to demonstrate how to use that later on. If you don't see the word home page on your start page, you can all click on the switch to page dialog, and from this drop down you can choose home page. There are a number of other home pages there that have been pre-configured, and I would encourage you to check them out at your leisure. I'll show you at the end of this presentation how to customize a home page, how to take this stock home page and make it something that's yours to suit your needs or workflow. Okay? But for today, I'd ask that everyone start from home page, because as I'm going through my demos, I'm going to assume that it'll take you back there. It'll be a little bit easier for you if you follow along with me. In the very top left, just off my screen, are 4 toggle buttons. What those will do is toggle what we call the application navigator on and off, or your banner on and off, which you can't even see on my screen because it's off the screen. My recommendation to you would not be to use any of these split screens, so we can split our screen vertically or horizontally. For today, make sure those top 4 buttons are all light gray and not dark gray. So click them, check them out, and then deselect them. It might be fun for you to try them out later, but for today they're usually not very helpful. In here we have what is called the application navigator. Throughout the course of this demonstration, we're actually going to go through most of these applications to show you some highlights from them. I'll start off by just showing the My Records application right here. And you might see that the My Records application, it contains several predefined filters which mirror the default homepage. So we wanted to set up everyone with a useful set of filters out of the box that first and foremost shows all of your work, which is to say everything, all the records in the system that have been assigned to you. How many people use RT right now? A little bit of RT. So the records you've taken. So these are the records you've been assigned. Below that, we have my group's incidents, my group's requests, and my group's tasks. How many people monitor multiple RTQs? So this would be somewhat akin to having all of your RTQs in one bucket. That makes sense? So it's looking at all of the incidents from all of your RTQs. Now, it's not exactly a one-to-one relationship, RTQs to assignment groups. Many service managers have changed the names, consolidated or expanded the assignment groups. So I'll leave it up to you to negotiate with your service managers or service teams as to what the actual assignment groups you should be in for the purposes of this. I'll show you how to investigate that further. Just want to point that out. Everyone okay with the general overview here? Excellent. I have to be patient with my clicking here. I'm going to show you a new concept, which is called the new call application. Many people say, well, Jake, I don't answer the phone. I don't want to learn this. I actually think it's really interesting. It's an interesting piece of functionality. So I'll ask that you bear with me and see how it operates. It might actually work for your workflow. It's really good for quick customer data capture. So someone walks in. How many people are plagued by sticky notes on their desk with like maybe some snippets of information? Yeah, you are. I am. You can actually capture those data through the new call application. So it's going to be called a call no matter what. That's just the terminology that ServiceNow uses. We'll call that a ServiceNowism, if that makes any sense. So we're calling these snippets of information a call, but it can be anything that works for you. We're going to have two destinations for a new call. Well, you could log it as general inquiry or other, and that could be anything you want to keep in your logs. That won't generate any customer email, and there's no obligation to follow up. So it's just a log of information. You might want to track this over time. You also have the ability to take a new call and turn it into a request or an incident. So creating a request or incident record is going to generate an email to the customer, much like emailing help at you. They're going to get a confirmation that they have a record's been created. And then there's the obligation to follow up, just like an RT ticket. We will have to actually follow up and resolve that record. Does that make sense? So we have 4 options, but 2 general destinations. And I'd just like to show a little bit of workflow. I apologize, this is a little bit of a complex slide, but I like it regardless, so I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show you at first here how to work a new call record, and it can end there. You can transfer that to an incident or a request, and in doing so, you will be emailing the customer. Most of our work comes in the front door through Help at You or any of our other predefined email addresses that are going to generate request records. So like I said, all of our work, all the emails will default as a request record. We have the ability to create tasks associated with that. How many people use subtickets? So if you use subtickets, you're going to want to be creating request tasks, and they function similarly to subtickets. I changed the color here to note that the customer cannot be communicated to through a task, an R task, for example. So that's a good thing. You can convert a request record to an incident record and also work the tasks similarly. And like I alluded to before, you could take the information from an incident record and generate a problem record and version it, essentially, and work on that at a later date as you resolve the incident. So this is kind of a general overview of the full functionality and workflow within the system. Yeah, Jason.
So for an example of using a task, would it be an appropriate use to assign a task to, say, someone in a different group in
Yes.
IT?
Yes. Very often, you may be managing a request and speaking with a customer and realizing that I need to speak to an engineer or a different group within UWIT. You could generate a record that would either be assigned to a person or an assignment group, kind of like sticking a subticket in someone's queue, if you use that analogy. And so they would then fulfill that task, communicate back to you, and you would manage the customer communication. So at times you may say, oh, I want a new request record because I want that other group to talk to the customer. All those are fine. That's individual workflow. But this would be if you need someone to fulfill a component of the request, and you yourself are going to maintain the customer communication. I'm showing 2 tasks, 2 R tasks. You could have 50. I don't recommend it, but by all means, if you have a really complex request, that may be the best way to handle it. Any other questions about workflow? I just want this to be up here and in your mind as we're talking about it. And I'm just noting also internal communication. For those who work sub-tickets, this does make sense already. But when we're talking about the work notes, that's terminology for the section that communicates in here, the work notes will communicate between all our tasks and back up to the request. Same with incident and problem. So if you communicate through this task, it'll actually be mirrored across all of the tasks. It's very chatty, and that's by design. OK, so let's go in and make a new call record. And even if you don't take calls, I'm going to show you some critical functionality, so I'll ask everyone to click along, even if it's a little bit boring. I do appreciate your patience with me. So if you guys could all click on the Service Desk application, there are a fair number of options in here. If you scroll down a ways, you will see the New Call option. What I'm going to do with that is I'd like to actually pin this to my PowerEdge. If you want to follow along, it's pretty simple. I can drag and drop, so I'm just going to left-click and drag this over to my PowerEdge. I've actually pinned this now, and I have quick access. This application navigator has a lot of stuff in there, basically something for everybody, and that might be overkill. If you find yourself digging through here for something commonly, I recommend that you drag it over and pin it to your PowerEdge so you can access it really quickly. Yeah?
So when you do that, is that just for this particular session? Or does it...
This is going to be across all your browsers, all your sessions. The PowerEdge is for that. The only limitation of the PowerEdge, and I'll be frank, is if you go in with an iPad, it doesn't show up for some reason. So you're only going to see your saved filters and things like that. So it's a small limitation. If you're going between the desktop and the iPad, you might notice that. That might affect your decisions to use the PowerEdge or not. I know in future releases, we're looking forward to the next version of this already because the user interface has changed a bit, and it's going to be less reliant on some of these things. Yeah, this is going to remain, though. OK. You see as I hover over this, I can also edit this. This is a pretty good image, though, the new call image, so I'll keep that there. You guys can follow along at home. I'm going to click on the phone and open up a new call record. For my purposes, what I'm going to be doing during the demo is I'll be toggling my application navigator on and off. I recommend that you not do that. It's one more step you don't need to follow. But you'll notice my screen has limited resolution. Yours are a little better than mine. So you can ignore that. If, though, you find yourself squinting, I've seen people taking off their glasses and trying to read the screen. Please click on this A here. You see these big and small A's? That's going to change your text size. You might welcome that on these high-res screens. Everyone OK with that? So click until it's comfortable for you. I'm going to keep mine pretty small so I can fit everything on the page. I'm assuming that you can see a more detailed version of the page in front of you. Excellent. Here we are on a new call. And again, it is unfortunate that they call it a call. It seems like I have to be an operator to use this. Bear with me. It's fun. So first piece of terminology here, a caller. So we no longer have the concept of a requester as we see in RT. Everyone's going to be called a caller. So we need to put someone in here. I'll ask that you start typing in the net ID of someone in UW IT that you'd like to pick on today. Make them the caller on your tickets. I like to have fun and use RT terminology. The caller on your records. When I type in JKUL, I see a couple of characters. The first four are actually me. One of them is finding my net ID. This is searching across net ID, name, email address, alumni ID, employee ID, and student ID. So a lot of information to search. So if someone emails you from a Gmail address and gives you their student ID, we can look them up really quickly and get a proper entry for their record. Come on in, Daniel. Please get signed in. Grab a handout. You'll be fine. You'll get caught up. So I can choose this particular person. Everyone has to have a record in our database to be in a system or associated with any record. So if someone calls you up or walks in and they don't exist, we can click on this little lookup icon. I just clicked on the magnifying glass. I can do an exhaustive search of the 26,247 current records in our database. Or I have the ability to click on New. So if I click on New, I can actually generate a new caller record. You can see it'll be a new user in the system. I'm told there are about 1 million UW net IDs out in the wild, and not all of them are in the system. So if someone does actually email you or contact you with a UW NetID, you can just put in their UW NetID at uw.edu, and we'll have an automated process to reconcile that. So you don't have to put a new entry for a NetID, obviously. The email is the only thing required. So you can put in a Gmail address, Yahoo, whatever. And if someone emails us with a request from an outside email address, it's automatically going to create a record for them. We don't have to do this for everyone, only if they walk in the door or give us a call. Everyone okay with that? Yeah.
Is there a way to link to so I can see, a Gmail and a NetID?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah. I don't know if there's a way in the user table to do that, like an extra field, but I haven't seen something formal. Clients currently do that in RT. They may email us from their NetID and a Gmail address. They're a different person in the system. They are here as well.
Yeah, but you can always, if you don't see their record as the Gmail, then go and ask for their NetID.
Yeah. And you might be able to even, I don't know how it would affect communications. You could go to these other things and change the caller record and make it their UW NetID too, but that's more of a procedural thing. You'll notice, though, as you do lookups, if people have a similar ID, it's pulling up because my NetID and my Yahoo and UW, you saw they're similar, my Yahoo ID and my NetID. So it's going to pull up those records quickly. That might help you with correlation, too. The search is very fast and powerful. I have the ability to capture one-time contact information. If you've chosen a UW NetID, you probably noticed that the contact information will automatically apply from the directory. I'm going to go down here and put in a short description. Help, I deleted everything. I'll just note that if someone were to email us, this is also going to be the subject line of their email. I automatically have that I opened this in the open time, which is great. And we'll talk about templates a little bit later. But if you commonly get requests, walk-ins or calls, and you want to apply a template to them to capture information or put in some common fields, you can search for and apply templates rapidly. So it's a very powerful feature. I'll put in here, looks like he broke it all. So I'm going to transfer this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to make this a call type of other. So you see call type is required. You're starting to see the use of color in the system. Orange at the very top is showing me something I can't change or something that's calculated. So obviously the number is going to be the primary key in our database, so we're not going to be editing those things. The green is telling me something, a field that's been updated and is going to be saved. And red is telling me something that has not yet been saved but is required. So if I don't save that or if I don't change this and I try to submit or save this, I'm going to throw an error. Pretty straightforward. I'll change this to another. I just want to point out a very small lie that we've already told you on this screen. I want to be very honest. We've told you that this customer visible description, this description is customer visible. But I also told you that if you make this general inquiry or other, it's not going to generate an email, correct? So to say that this is customer visible isn't entirely accurate. If I save this as general inquiry or other, it's going to have this record exist only for our purposes. That sound okay? So I'd like for you to make this an other call, and then hover with me. Please don't click yet. Hover with me over the submit and save buttons. We have pretty copious use of hover text throughout this system. If you find yourself asking a question, I wonder what that does, hover over it. You're very likely to find an answer. So I'll ask you to ask yourself, what is the difference between a submit and save right now? The most important answer to that question is not much. In this system, save is not I'd like to save on this and continue working later. No. A save is going to commit this record to the database, update all changes, and if applicable, the save will also email the customer. That sound okay? Those buttons are functionally equivalent. The only difference is where you end up after you click on them. So if I save, it means commit all my changes and stay here. I like to call it a save and stay. It's more evocative. If I hit submit, it's going to commit all my changes and take me back wherever I was before, assuming I want to move on to another record and do different work. That make sense? So just remember that. There are going to be some other buttons that pop up in the top right. They're all going to be the same. They're all going to save your record, commit it to the database, potentially email the customer depending on the status of the record. The only thing that changes is where you go after you click on the button. That's a very important distinction, and you might notice me belaboring that point. I apologize. I just don't want you to find out the hard way that those buttons are all basically the same.
So if the call type is like a request, and I type something in the description, hit save, it will email a customer.
Yes.
Then I add another sentence to the description, hit save, it'll email the customer again.
Yeah. 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 I mean, save is going to commit the record and email the customer if applicable.
Okay.
Yeah, I chose my words very carefully there.
Yeah.
If it's set to communicate to the customer, if you've done an action that should communicate and you hit save, it will communicate.
Okay.
And we'll go through that at great length and in great detail. So don't worry, there'll be no gotchas here today. You have a question?
So if you save this as other, with something in that description, and later change it.
That's what we're going to do. Then they'll get that. Yeah, so I want to show you. Yeah, so I made something boneheaded. So I may look like I'm haphazard, but I'm usually pretty methodical. I put something boneheaded in here on purpose. So let's bear with me, and I'll show you exactly what you're talking about. Let's all hit save together. And again, you'll see I'm actually asking you to go really slowly with me. There is a method to my madness. So most people do save and do the right thing, and sometimes you end up in the wrong spot. So if you're looking at your record still, you're great. And if not, all you have to do is go back to the Service Desk application, and you can click on My Calls. So if at any time you need to come back and find this information, everything you log is going to be available under the My Calls section. You click on My Calls. I've got a history of all of my calls, and this one's actually just showing my recent calls. I have a lot of calls here, by the way. If I click on it, I can get back to my record. So you can see why this is valuable for quick customer data capture, and if you make it other, no one's going to see it but you or other people in Udemy IT. So we're all back on the same page? Excellent. All right, in this particular scenario, let's say I was swamped. I was just capturing data really quickly, net IDs and notes. I realized, you know what? I need to follow up with this customer. I'd like to actually generate a request on their behalf, and I want to email them. Now that I have time, I can catch my breath behind the desk, maybe had a cup of coffee. I'm going to clean this up and open up a record for our customer. That sound like a reasonable scenario? Some of you may not take calls, but you may manage people who do. So that's why I'm also belaboring this, because I manage people who take calls. So I'm going to clean this up and say, hi, Jake. Here is our summary. We will follow up. So now I've just prettied this up. I noticed that the customer needed a summary of the issue, and I'm going to generate a request record. We're going to follow up. Everyone okay with that? I'm going to go in here, change my call type to request. And here's where customer visible becomes the gospel truth, as it were. I'm going to now commit my record, and this description is going to be emailed out to the customer, just like they had made a request to help at you. And it's going to give them a confirmation that a record's been opened on their behalf, and include any information that's in the description. That make sense? Everyone feel okay with that? You'll notice at the top right, our submit and save are gone. We now only have an update. An update is going to be just like a submit. And if you hover over it, you'll see that it would save your record. In this instance, email the customer, and then take you back to wherever you were before. Now, if you still want to save, and we all want to save right now, by the way, you can right-click on this gold bar, or you can also hover over this button by call, and a context menu will pop up. Everyone see that? If you're fortunate enough to have a touch screen in your life, that context menu will be your friend. So you'll want to click there to get advanced options. I'll be showing you how to right-click. Everyone love Windows as much as I do? You know how you have to basically right-click everywhere to do anything? You have to right-click to do this as well. At least until the new UI comes out. Those who do usability for a living, I see Daniel smirking in the back there. It's justified. This is not the greatest for usability, but we all have to know that right-clicking on that gold bar is going to be mission critical. And you can see a couple really important things hidden in there. You'll notice that we have a save button back if you right-click. So you can always get back there. You might be asking, well, Jake, why don't you just put a save button back on the menu bar? You could do that, but then you'd have 50 buttons across the top. We still have to be able to access these other really important menu options as well. So if you guys could all right-click and save, that would be wonderful. Everyone still back on the call? And again, if you magically ended up not on the call, that does happen. You can go back to My Calls and recover it. Here I have a note that this call has been transferred to a request. And it doesn't tell you here, but when you go look at the request itself, you're going to see that the customer was actually emailed and told that a new request has been opened on their behalf. If you don't have a link at the top of your record, sometimes when people go through this, they lose the link. Oh, bye Google. You may have lost your link. You'll notice in the field here that the request this has been transferred to is actually noted. And also, you may notice here that the call has been converted. It's no longer updatable. Our obligation now is to follow the request and follow up with the customer. Make sense? So if you don't have that link, copy the request number from this field, and you can then search on it. So please click on this link here and follow your request if you can. Or if you lost that link, just copy and paste it into your global search. Everyone okay with that? We're all following our request? Excellent. All right, now we have the ability to check this out and follow it. First thing I'm going to have you learn is the concept of a configuration item. And that's a ServiceNow term. If you were to click on this little icon to the right of configuration item, you see the CI navigator. This is going to pop up a list of all of our business services and service offerings. So you're able to drill down and find one of the service offerings that you actually support. So if I click on collaboration, productivity, I might find, for example, Catalyst Web Tools, which I support. So I could click on that and populate my configuration item. Is everyone able to drill down and find something that means something to them? You may not be able to find everything you're looking for today, but at least you know where to look, so you know what to do before the RT cutover. Yeah? So what this is doing is it is adding a service offering and attaching it to all of our records for metrics. So right now, no matter who actually works this, no matter which group fulfills this service, we know that this request actually is logged against this particular business service or service offering in our database. This is literally our catalog, our service catalog. That make sense? Service owners and managers are defining, once you choose a configuration item, a particular service offering, the assignment group gets auto-populated. So in this instance, I've chosen a service that I'm a member of, or that I support, and a team that I am on has auto-populated. So take a look at your assignment group here. And this is roughly equivalent to sticking this particular ticket in a queue, right? We made a new ticket in RT. We need to know where to put it to be fulfilled. If you're not sure, you can always assign this to the Unibyte Service Center, and they can route it as appropriate. That still exists, just like in RT. I'll point out that you are auto-assigned because we transferred a call. You do have the ability of putting someone else in there. So I see Jason in the back. I could start typing his NetID and grab him and throw him in there. A quick note, you can only assign this to someone who's a member of this assignment group. And that's just a scoping mechanism to make it faster. If you do wish to assign it to someone who's not a member of that group, you can delete the group and then assign a person and put a group back. Does that make sense? It's not a common workflow to assign it to someone outside the group, but you can do that if you wish. So again, what I've learned is exactly how many digits I need to type, how many characters I need to type to find the services that I support. So instead of clicking through everything, I would recommend that you learn to do the type ahead and find your teams. Everyone okay with that? Great. For everything we do today, make sure that you click on this little Add Me button and make sure that you are assigned each record. How many people have already kind of kicked the tires, checked out the system? So some of you might be really comfortable with this. but as you're going through and making records, you might lose something because you weren't sure what was going to happen. If you make sure that you add yourself to every record, you're not going to lose anything. So make sure you click on the Add Me and assign everything to you. Phew. Yeah.
On that CI navigator that you use, is that supposed to show just business services or both business services and service offerings?
You should see business services at the top and service offerings below that. Yep. I'm not sure of the workflow where you would want to log something against a business service, because often the business services don't have assignment groups, but you're not stopped from doing that. Okay, so if you do that, make sure it still ends up with the right assignment group. And all these defaults, the default assignment group has been determined through EMIR by service owners and service managers. So those defaults can also be changed. And of course, the default can be overridden. You may know which group it should go to, which queue it should end up in, to push the analogy. So you're always able to choose the correct destination. Everyone okay with what we've done so far? So we've just gone through the very basics of going through and setting this information. What I'd like for you guys all to do, yeah.
Like I was trying to assign them to you, but I can't find you.
Yeah, I'm not a member of the group that you chose. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's a requirement. So if you do need to assign it outside your group, delete the group. Yeah. And if you're curious, you guys see these little eyes, these little information lookups. You can hover and see which groups they are. If you click on that eye, it will actually take you to the group, and you can see who's a member of that group. So you can learn a lot about the system by doing on that. Be careful when you're in a record, though. It's going to open up a new tab, cause navigation issues. Okay, I would like for everyone to save this record. So if you could all right-click and save. All right, and I'm going to ask you, just so you're ready for the next section of this, what do you think would happen if I click on any of these buttons up here? Remember that concern I gave you before? All of these buttons, they may have a different destination or a different action, but every one of them is going to save it, and if applicable, email the customer. That make sense? Let's scroll down a little bit to our activity log on this request. We're not going to work it too much today, but just scroll down all the way to the activity log. Just want to point out the workflow. If you see, I have a log item here. That's really interesting. This is internal, so no one saw it. This is the summary that was sent out to the customer. And it also logged that an email was sent. So when I generated this request initially, there's actually a little email icon. I can click on that and see exactly what the customer saw. Essentially telling them a request was made on their behalf. They can click to see the status in the portal. It also had in there the description that I had posted. If you look on the handout that was provided, there is a summary of every time the customer could get an email. It may seem like it's a lot of information. The principles are actually quite simple. Every time a record's created, they're going to get an email. And every time we update them with comments, they're going to get an email. The rest of it's just details. You'll notice that I saved this record again after updating some things. That was pushed to the log. So it shows here that I updated the configuration item in the log, but it did not email the customer again. All I did was save the record with an update to the form. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. Okay, we're going to take a step back here. And everyone saw at least a touch of service offerings and groups. We're going to move on to a different section now, guys. Well, we're going to move on to a different section. You saw your service offerings and groups. I'd like for you to make sure that you understand all of the service offerings you support and all the groups you're a member of. And I'm going to show you how to find that information. We're going to do a quick demo of essentially Googling yourself in the system and then investigating the service offerings that you may be a member of. Okay. So I would like everyone, and I apologize, you can't really see my mouse here, to click on the UW Connect logo and go back home. And in the top right, do you guys need help? You guys gonna? I need you to type in your NetID in the top right search. So I'm going to type in my NetID, and again, you can't see me typing up there. If you Google yourself, put your NetID in the top right search, and hit return, that should do a system-wide search on your NetID. So we can look up ourselves, but we can also look up any other caller in this manner. So I can't predict what you see on your screen, but very often people have these sections truncated. Can you all look in people and places and find the entry for your NetID? Everyone able to do that? So if you click on your NetID, you should find your user record in the system. Everyone on the same page with me? This is actually a lot of fun. How many people do FYI or Daffy lookups? So if you ever are looking up customer information, this is a great place to also get it. The goal is to ultimately retire these other systems for looking up customer information and just come here for that. You can see my affiliations and fun stuff like that. A quick note, I have tabbed navigation turned on. So as I scroll down, I see a bunch of tabs across my screen. I'll ask that you all follow along with me here. In the top right, if you're on your user entry, you should have the ability to toggle your tabs on and off. If you have your tabs toggled off, you have what I'll call the scroll of death, and you won't see the same thing I see. That might be useful depending on your workflow, but I'll ask that you all toggle your tabs on, and this preference is going to be retained across the system, so you'll see what I see. That make sense? So if we do a short scroll, you should see what looks to be 6 tabs for me. And this is actually quite fun. You're actually seeing my entry also as a customer. So if you look up anyone, any of our customers in the system, any of our callers, you're going to find all of their previous incidents and requests. You can see I'm a pretty heavy user of the system as a customer as well. And I can scroll down and see everything. I'll ask you to scroll over to the 4th tab and click on Groups. This is going to show your entry in the system and show you all of the groups that you're a member of. So this is going to show, and this also explains the defaults. By default, it's going to show all of your groups incidents, all of your groups requests to you. So these are the groups you've been made a member of. And the membership here is defined by service owners and service managers. So if that needs to be updated, that can be, of course. So if you click on a group that means something to you, here I'll click on UW IT staff because that's kind of fun. You'll notice we have 694 members of UW IT staff. So you can actually go in and check them out if you want. The other thing to note is that when you look at a group specifically, if you are a service owner or a member manager, the group specifically has the UW group listed. So you can actually go into UW groups and update your membership if you want to change these defaults. So folks can do that on their own. I'm not a service manager, but I'm a member manager, not of that group, but of others. So I can make sure that the correct people are in my groups. All right, I just want to explain where the defaults come from. You can check that out later if you wish. I'm going to take a step back, and you might notice that I have the option of scrolling up and down in my application navigator here. I find that to be a little bit disorienting. What I'm going to do is click on this little minus to collapse every time I enter my application navigator so we can keep our bearings. And I'd like for all of you to go in the application navigator and click on configuration with me. And click on service offerings. So this is pulling up the 149 service offerings that are actually our service catalog for UW IT. And so when you go into that configuration item of any record, these are all the options you can type ahead and find. Okay? One thing that's useful if you're trying to navigate the system and figure out, am I seeing the correct service offerings? What are they actually called? As you scroll across, you'll note that you can find out who owns these service offerings and who manages them. So very often people may not know what the new name for their service offering is or what it officially is in the catalog, but you can always find your service manager. So I'm going to pick on Karin here, partly because I like her, and she's a very effective service manager. If I right-click in the blank space right beside her name, right beside that entry in the database, I have the ability to do a quick database filter. So I'm going to select Show Matching, and it's going to drill down and find the 5 services managed by Karin. That makes sense? It's convenient for me because I know that all the services I support are actually managed by her. I can look to see which support groups have been defined by default, and I can make sure that I'm a member of each of those so I see the correct records. Does all this make sense? Great. So if you don't see the correct group, so you're not a member of the correct group, I hope you know who to contact to get this corrected, and generally it's the person here in this column. Am I okay with that? Excellent. We're on track to take a break in a few minutes, so you guys are powering through. I appreciate you staying with me and staying awake. I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about how the system works now. So in RT, we have this rather evocative image of tickets being pushed around amongst queues. And it's kind of an easy concept, and I like it. Here, we have one massive database. All of our customer requests are going to be records in the database, and we're going to be using filters to find those records. So all the defaults are going to show the records that you're assigned to or your default assignment groups. And I just want to introduce the concept of a task table. How many people have a little bit of database experience? Maybe just a tiny bit, enough to be dangerous? It helps a little bit, but it's not required. I just want to note, and this is the only real mental note you need to make on this, if you're filtering against the task table, it's going to return all of the records, all of the incidents or requests, problems, and tasks. So if you want to do a broad filter to find all records, you would filter against the task table. If you are filtering against just the request table, for example, it's only going to return requests. You might be asking yourself, well, Jake, why would I ever do that? Hopefully by the end, you'll understand that there's some specific functionality, or you may just be looking for incidents. You may still want to filter just against those individual tables. But by and large, you'll be filtering against the task table to find all of your records. And hopefully at the end, you have enough knowledge to create some custom filters, and that'll be very important. All right, so if you guys are in Connect with me here, I'm going to scroll back up and click on the My Records section. I'll ask that all of you click on Unassigned Work. So unassigned work is a default filter that we've provided. If you look at the top of that, you're actually seeing some breadcrumbs. Those breadcrumbs represent the filter items that are actually pulling from the database and putting all these records in front of you. It's a little bit hard to read the filter here, but I'm going to click on this little drop-down menu. It's a tiny little caret, little gray caret, right by the filter, right by all. Click on that and open up the filter builder. So you're all with me here? So we've got our filter exposed. This is giving a slightly more human-readable version of this. You can see, and I'll just make a note here. This filter was built against the task table. So again, it'll return all incidents, requests, and the like. All active ones, all records where the assigned to field is empty. So essentially, no one is owning these records. And the assignment group is dynamic, which makes it one of my groups. So any group I'm a member of. So this default filter is going to show all of the unassigned work in all of my groups. So it's a good starting point for a lot of filters. Let's modify this filter a little bit. I'm going to delete the first element, active is true. I'm going to delete assigned to is empty. And I'm going to delete state is one of pending, etc. So essentially, I've customized this filter down to just one element. Everyone able to delete elements? You'll notice we have and, or, so we can build custom filters as you see fit. I'm going to go in and change the assignment group. I would like for all of you to go in this first element and choose updated by. So what I'd like to do is teach you how to make a filter that's going to help you at least for today. If for some reason you update a record and then put it in the wrong group or forget to assign it to yourself, you might not find that record again, right? You could commit it to the database and not know where it went because you made a small mistake. I'm going to make a filter that says updated by and add your net ID in the third element there. After adding that element, you can click on Run. And so now what this is showing for me is the 311 records from the entire database, from all of UWIT's database, in eval at least, where I was the last person to update it. Hopefully, all of you at least return one record with this filter because you updated one request. it's not searching against calls. You might have noticed that already. It's only going to be requests, incidents, problems, all the records where we communicate with clients. This is a useful search as you're learning how this works. The only limitation of it is that it only shows the records where you were the last person to update it. So if someone comes in the record and updates it after you, it won't return that record. It's a slight limitation, but it'll help you today. I'll ask that you all grab this last element, grab your NetID with a left click, and drag it over to your PowerEdge. So I'm just doing a drag and drop. Don't drag from all. That will actually drag over and actually pin a different version of the filter. So drag the last element with your NetID and drop it on your PowerEdge. Everyone able to do that? So I've created a version of this filter that I can run from my PowerEdge anytime I need to actually pull up this filter and find all the records I last created. Everyone okay with that? I'm going to show you how to work with this filter a little further. So I'll show you a couple really important tricks here. You'll see in here that mine has been customized a little bit. Mine might not look like yours. I'll ask that you all click on the gear icon. When you click on the gear icon, you're going to have a whole bunch of additional columns available to you. So I can actually customize what I see in front of me. So for example, I've already customized mine. I have an option to reset my column defaults. I'm going to do that quickly. Go back in here, and then I can add additional things. In the available columns, one thing that I like is the created. So I'm going to click on created as an available option and push it over to the selected. And I also have the updated. The updated column is also a useful one. Then I can sort all of my records on which the last one was updated by. I've actually, I believe, yeah, it's fine. You can't move multiples, but I can add them over. And now I'm going to take one and move it to the top. By changing the order vertically, it paradoxically, of course, changes the order horizontally on your screen, but we expect that. So I can add a couple critical columns. This is really useful. One thing I'll note is that I am updating the columns that are visible via the task table. Anytime I filter against the task table, these headers and this order will display. So I'm basically changing my system-wide defaults when I do this. So you can add a bunch of stuff. Just be careful that there are implications. If you have a big, wide monitor, you'll be just fine. Everyone okay with that? Great. So now I could even go in and look for everything I updated and sort based on the updated date. I should be able to find everything I just did. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. Okay, we are at a break point. Not a breaking point, but a time to take a break. Take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 10:05. If you have questions or want to get caught up on anything, please do so now. I'll answer questions as we go. 10:05, we'll start back up promptly. Thank you. Now we're going to pop into, here's our break, here's your instructions. You all followed them. Looks like you're all back. That's great. We're going to talk a little bit about service requests. Again, the bulk of our work is going to come in the front door as a service request. Any email to help@you is going to generate a request ticket. And if it does come in to help@you, will be routed to our assignment groups. So a lot of what we're having you do here today, choose a configuration item, choose an assignment group, is a bit artificial, but it's good practice. It helps you understand how the system works. An email to help@you will get routed to us the same way an email does today. How many people, again, use sub-tickets in RT? A few. We're going to walk through how to use request tasks. I'll call them R tasks. They're very similar sub-tickets. You can set up your requests to require approval. Let's say it's a big ticket item. Someone has to be assigned to approve it. You can do that, but it's a more advanced feature. If you want to do that, we can help you on the side, but most people aren't going to do that, so we'll skip that option. I want to point out the anatomy of a request record, and this is going to apply across the system. You've already seen that by default, we really do have to be aware of our activity log. And I just put this up here to remind me to tell you that when something comes in the front door, we're going to read the summary of the customer request. We really have to go down and check the activity log to see what's happened before we start answering it. So any customer follow-up is going to be logged. down in the activity log. Any communication from other team members will be down here in the log. At the very bottom of the actual record, we're going to have a link to tasks. So if you do have the equivalent of a sub-ticket, it'll be at the very bottom. So I want to remind everyone to scroll all the way through your records before replying. I hope that doesn't sound overly parental. I just don't want people to miss important information. Okay, let's pop on over to the Service Requests application. And we're going to click on Create New Request. In here, you're starting to see a few common form fields. So let's all go in there and put in a configuration item that works for us. Note the assignment group that pops up, and click on the Add Me. I'm going to do a brief demo here. I'm going to ask that you watch me and not follow along. I hope that's okay. So if you guys would take a look here, I do have what is called a class category, and this is just a scoping mechanism for searching. So if I keep it on services, the default, and I start typing, it's just going to find services. If I'm the kind of person that likes to log things against hardware, I can actually start typing, and you'll notice I get a whole bunch of servers pop up. So if this is part of your service team's workflow, you can actually log records against hardware or other assets. Not a lot of people do that. Just wanted to show you how to do it. So I'd have to type farther ahead to find my service offering if I do that. And then the other thing you can do, if you are someone who works in networking, how many people is that applicable to? So if you're in networking and you choose, for example, wired network services, you're going to be required to add a sector. And what that will do is give you custom signatures when you send out emails to your customers. So for a lot of folks, it doesn't matter. Just want to make sure you see that there. I'll go back to my old standard Catalyst. All right. Let's scroll on down here. If at any time you have questions about any of these things, you can just click on these question marks. It's going to pop up a new tab, and we have custom knowledge base articles helping us describe our settings. Let's take a look at impact and urgency. We're all being asked to essentially calculate a priority for all of our records. So, for example, something that has only a single customer requesting it, it may have low impact. If it affects a lot of people, clearly it could be a high impact. Urgency, this may in fact be a VIP asking for this request. So I could change my urgency to high, and that's going to create a different calculated priority for me. When you look at your list of records, your queue full of tickets, you could sort based on the actual priority and use that for triaging. Yeah.
I understand on the left-hand side, like the red represents like required field, and I saw that it changed from green to yellow.
It'll change from green to red. Sorry, it'll change from red to green if something that's required has been updated.
Okay.
And if you want to know what these actually mean, you can also hover and tell you something that's been changed. Field changed since last update. This is telling you something, a change that'll be committed to the database, essentially. And the reds are the things that still need to be changed. I'm going to type in a short description. Help me restore email. And I'm going to remind myself the short description is the subject line of the inbound email address, or email. Or perhaps more importantly, it's going to be the subject line of the outbound customer communication as well. So clearly, customer visible. And this is a bit artificial, I will admit. Not a lot of us are going to be creating tons of records every day. Up in the caller, let's pick on the same person so you can fill this out quickly. I'm going to ask you to learn something new today, maybe. How many people currently add CCs to RTs? So you have the ability to add additional people. That's what we call the watch list, the customer visible watch list. So you can either add yourself or click on that little lock to add additional people. You might catch me using the term customer and caller interchangeably today. That's partly because the system does. So I perpetuate that confusion. So customer and caller are going to be interchangeable. How many people use admin CC in RT? I love it. Basically lets me get emailed whenever there are internal communications on this record. That's what Marcus was just getting hit with a bunch when people are playing around. So if you add people to the work notes list, they're going to get both the customer communication and the internal UWIT only communication. Just a note, you can add anyone you want to this work notes list. So you can also email outside of YouTube IT if you add people there. You can give anyone updates. And as a side note, everyone in YouTube IT can see every record no matter what. So if you're an internal customer, you can always check on the status of your requests. Due date is optional. Audit completed is optional if that suits your workflow. Let's go down here to the customer visible description, saying, hi, I broke it and need data backup. That clearly wasn't properly formed, but I don't care. I'm not going to correct my typos for today. So what this is essentially, and I'm putting here so I don't forget, this is going to be the body of the email. So if a customer were to email us at help@you, it would create a request record. It would get routed to us by the service center to our assignment group, and we would see the body of their email and the subject line right there. So if you guys would all come with me and click on Save. Before we actually click on it, we'll just make a mental note. Since we're inserting a new record in the system, the customer is going to be emailed in this example. Excellent. So I'm going to pause there. We just generated a new request record. Now I'm going to take a step back. Let's forget what we just did. Let's assume that an email came into our assignment group through help@you, and we're now going to work the request. Does that make sense? The customer has received an email saying a request has been generated. Here's the link to follow up. Now we're going to communicate with them. Sound okay? Let's scroll down here a little bit. We've taken a look at the description of the customer. Looks like it's a little bit nonsensical. I can scroll down here and see my activity log. Nothing's happened to it, no tasks. Let's go up here and work the request. I'm going to go into the additional comments section and customer visible. I'm just going to pause here and stress that the additional comments section from here on out is what's going to trigger customer communication. Whenever we update a record that have additional comments added, that's going to notify the customer. That's probably the only thing you really need to remember today. So, anyone notice a problem by calling this comments? In RT, what are comments? They're the hidden internal communication. So don't be the person who gets that backwards and sends it out the first time. It does say customer visible. Additional comments. Updating any record in any way with additional comments in that field is going to trigger a customer notification. So I'll say, hi Jake. Sorry to hear that. Try this, this, and this. So this is my poorly formatted response to the customer, but I know this guy, so he'll be fine. I have a work note section down here that's in a slightly different color. I can say I asked for help from an engineer, for example, just so I have internal documentation of what I did. This is going to be visible only to YouTube IT staff and people on the work notes list. Anything in the comment section is going to go out to the customer. The work notes is a great way to communicate to other people. Yeah, it would be internal communication if you assign to the person you're assigning to. That's a good use of it as well. Okay, let's pause for a second. Since this has already been submitted to the database, we lost our submit button because it's been saved one time. We have a couple buttons up at the top. We also still have our save, right? So I can still right-click and save if I wish to commit this record and communicate to the customer. I'll give you a basic quiz. What do you think would happen if I click on Create Our Task? It would create a task associated with this record. And what else would happen? I would email the customer. I have content in my customer visible section. Any of these buttons, any update to the record is going to trigger that. Well, that's the way it's designed. The assumption is you know what you're doing, right? That's a powerful tool. You are going to comment to the customer instead of saving and talking to the customer and then creating a task. You want to communicate with the customer and create a task in one click. That's what that button means. Everyone okay with that? I just want to pause. All of these buttons up here are going to commit to the database and communicate to the customer if applicable. So from here on out while working this record, if there is any content here in the additional comment section, a further action is going to trigger communication to the customer, and that's by design. And once we're comfortable with it, that's why we're playing around here. We're in eval, as you may have guessed, no emails are going out, so we can play and have fun, no stress. Yeah, Bill. It's supposed to, and it doesn't. Oh wait, it does save. It does say save request.
No, I mean, I would love to see it say explicitly in every one of those cases.
Well, that's why I say it when I train you. Everyone has to be trained. Not everyone gets trained by me, but anyhow. I want to make sure when you leave that you're very accurately able to predict when a customer is going to be emailed. And now that you understand that they get emailed when we create a record, and whenever we add customer visible comments to a record and hit save in any way, they'll be emailed. And that's really all you have to remember.
So if you make a change to the part of the record that's not visible to the customer, they're still going to get an email.
Nope. They'll only get an email if you add content to the additional comment section. So that green light turning on, you can kind of see that. If that green light is on in the additional comment section, any update, any change or save, will actually trigger communication to the customer. That's the only thing you need to remember, really. And if you delete that content and then hit save, no email will go out.
Oh, okay. And then
Yeah.
I have something written on the work notes that will work like as a comment.
Yes, if it's only in the work notes and you hit save, it's going to log it as internal communication. If you make an update to the form field, it's all just updating the record.
If you add to the watch list or any of those things, is that?
The only way a customer is going to get emailed is if you save it with content here. And I know I give you this long list. I apologize, really. I made it overly complex. If there's something here and that green light's on and you hit save in any way, they're going to get an email. Just to belabor the point, because I love doing that, maybe even beating a dead horse, I'm going to say, you know what, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to delete that and hit save. Yeah, it's still green. I did that on purpose. I missed the space. I've done this a million times. I had three blank spaces in there. If you actually literally have dead space and save, this green light's on, the customer's getting an email. I wish the light were bigger. I just want to make sure that no one in this room ever makes that mistake. That's my charge right now. I can't help everyone else. Okay, all right. So the light's on. They're going to get an email. Yeah.
Delete all the spaces that you did,
Yeah, it's really easy.
and then it won't show green.
Then it won't show green. But what I did is I had an extra space after my stuff, and I deleted all the text but not the space. I did that on purpose. There's a method to my madness. So just so you know, that green light's on, someone's getting an email. I can back out. I can leave the record and lose all my changes. That's also fine. So it'll warn you. Whenever the form's been dirtied, as it were, and you navigate away, it'll warn you if you want to do that. So you can back out of this communication. So that's all that really matters. Any save, while there's content here, is going to trigger an email to the customer. For our daily business, that's all that really matters. I also have some of my staff in the room who are kind of falling asleep. I want to make sure that they know that, that's when the customers will get emailed. So I can hit return. Wake up. All right. So everyone okay with what I just showed you? I know that this is kind of slow, but you know, I think I deleted it as opposed to. I'll just go do that. All right. We can hit save. This is going to trigger a save, all the things I've changed, and it also emailed the customer because I said, hi, Jake. We're in eval. Go home. Now that this is real, Marcus is actually working in production right now as of today. This is real. We need to go. Now I think it's actually on us. We're going to go back and really practice with this now, right? Because we want to know what's going to happen. If you scroll down here, I can see the original email sent to me because I had saved the record. And then up here, I've got the internal work notes visible. So you can kind of see that yellow color. And above that, I've got the customer comment. You may notice that the email is not there in the log yet. The emails all get queued up, and it takes a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, for them to actually show up in the log. If you'd like to see your email in the log, I'll ask you to right-click on that gold bar, and you have the option to reload the form. You may be thinking, wow, I should just refresh my browser. Don't hit F5. Don't refresh your browser. You're not going to like what happens. It's going to take you back to the start. So if you want to refresh this record, right-click and reload form. You may note that the URL at the top of your screen isn't a custom URL for this particular record, so it's going to reload the start page. So if I reload the form, it's going to refresh my activity log. I can see what's transpired. I can click on that email and take a look at it. The customer has received an update from me now saying, giving me the description, and then below that, I've got the comment saying, hi, Jake. So that's going to be the format of our email from here on out. You'll notice that every time an email is triggered, a copy of the description is sent out to the customer. Okay? Let's talk about another point here, just for fun. You'll notice that the description is editable. So what do you think is going to happen if I edit the description and hit save? And keep in mind, I like to ask trick questions. What? It will not send out an email. That was a trick question. It's just going to commit the save. It's only if you put in additional comments. So by me telling you the trick question, I probably even further tricked you. That was a double trick. Okay. You can edit the description. It will not alone by itself trigger an email. But the next time an email is sent out, the updated version of the description will go with it. You can say, well, Jake, that's ridiculous. Why would I want to edit my customer's description? Has anyone ever had a long, rambling, and inaccurate customer request? You could update it. Or if you got a second request from a customer, you could take that content and update the initial request and work one. Just keep in mind that that is always customer visible, and it's going to go out with any communication. You also notice that it goes out at the top of the communication. So if it's a long request with a bunch of CCs, you might want to cut it down so that it's more accurate. The other side of that is, whenever you commit changes to this database, the customer description is immediately visible in our customer visible portal. So customers always get a link to go back to IT Connect and see the status of the request. The updated description, whenever I commit it, is actually visible to the customer real time.
Would that essentially be merging in RT?
That would be like merging, yeah. There's no you can't merge records in this system. So if you get duplicates, you're going to have to copy the relevant content into one record and close out that duplicate. It's unfortunate because we're kind of used to the idea of merging, but that would be the way to merge, to copy over the description, edit it, and then save that.
With the insert function, take care of that.
Insert as in copying?
Yeah.
You can't insert request records.
Okay.
What Bill is saying is there is ability to copy in the system, but we're limited as to the type of record that can be copied. When we were on the call, you may have seen an insert option to copy a record. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's a good question.
Do you have a request that we can see that actually has a response from the customer, so we can see what the log looks like? So
I can show you how to test it. I don't have one canned. I apologize. But if you make yourself a caller on this, and you go into IT Connect as yourself, you can talk back and forth. So the actual customer portal is live in IT Connect-test, and I can show you that once we get through a little bit of this. If you want to do some back and forth, the customer response is going to show up at the top of the activity log as an entry. Make sense? So their responses back to us, the email replies, are going to show up at the top of the activity log right here.
where it says Jake Kolstad, it would actually be from that.
It'll actually be from the customer. Yep. And so that's how you can see it. And that's also why I was saying scroll down, check out the log before replying. You want to see the last communication. That will be at the top of the log. Okay. So I just wanted to point all that out. I can hit save right now. I have not triggered an email. But if the customer were sitting there and hitting refresh on our portal, they would actually see the updated description in front of them. This is all about transparency. That slide up there, improving transparency with our customers, that wasn't just lip service. They're going to see this real time if they're at the portal. Okay, we're doing well. Let's take this task, so let's take this request and generate a task on it, so an R task. I'm going to click on Create R Task. This would be equivalent to creating a sub-ticket in RT. There is a default assignment group here. I'll just make a note that for some teams, this assignment group is going to be, by default, a Tier 2 escalation group for request tasks. So when you look back at the services list, you saw at first a fulfillment group. That's going to be the default assignment group, and then a support group. There are 2 columns on that list, on that table. The support group is going to be default here. So the assumption is like a Tier 2 engineering group. So just make sure you can always override that. Again, choosing a different assignment group would be like choosing a different queue. I want to make sure I assign it to myself. I'm going to pretend I'm an engineer here for today. Kind of fun. Down here in time worked, that's going to be a clock that's ticking whenever this is open, which may or may not be useful to you. This doesn't report back to Dynamics or anything like that. It's just for your purposes. I can stop the clock. I can say, oh, you know what? I worked 10 minutes on this. I'd like to log it. Whenever you save that time, whenever you save this record, that time is going to get pushed to the total. It's going to become a cumulative. So you have the per session time and a total time that's cumulative. Again, that's just for your use if you wish. The description is auto-populated. And I'll just make note, the work notes here, the internal communication, that is the place you're going to type in order to communicate with other UWIT staff. So if I wish, as an engineer, to communicate back to the request itself, I would type in notes here saying, hi, I did my job. So by typing in the work notes, it's going to communicate out to all other related requests. So the parent request, I think we've got a workflow over here. If I type in the work notes of a request task, it's going to communicate to all other request tasks and back to the request record itself. And that'll be pushed to the log of all those records. And that's by design. So if you have 50 tasks, that might get chatty. But that's, again, the way they wanted it.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds, though, just ignoring it, but if I have that. Is there a way to do it in a chronological order, like if task 1 needs to happen before
That
task
sounds like
2?
complex request.
Okay.
In project 1, we're doing simple request, simple tasks. If you actually have a workflow associated with that, we can actually have a Visio diagram. This needs to happen before this, this, and this. And that's going to be more complex requests in the future. That's the future of our organization. Right now, it's just simple request. That's a very good question. I like to gloss over that, but it's a good one. This all makes sense? So I could stick this R task into an engineering queue. Someone could fulfill that portion of the request. And then once they've done their job, they can put the state as closed complete. And when that's updated, I can see that on my request record. Make sense? All right, let's all update our task. So as you can see here, we clearly have an update from an engineer and also an associated R task. No, right? There's no indication that someone's communicated back to me. I can't see that I have a task here. So we all have to be trained to find this information. I hope that's okay to say. If you would scroll down for me, you can see at the top of my log, I have the communication from the engineer here. It does say R task. The engineer's note saying, hi, I did my job. And again, this is where the customer communication would show up as well in a different color. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, we have a list and a tab for request tasks. You can see there's a 1 there. That tells me I have 1 associated task. I could have 1 or 50 tasks below here, and I can see the status of each of those associated R tasks at the bottom. So remember back to the beginning where I told you we all have to get used to scrolling down and checking? That's where you're going to want to check to see if you have any tasks. If your group doesn't use tasks, forget about it. Is that okay? I'm going to give you a brief demo because it's fun. I'll ask that you watch along at home. I'm going to click on Create R Task a couple times. Create and back. I almost feel like I'm doing some sort of exercise. Create and back. Okay, so I just created 2 tasks. I didn't have to hit save. I literally created them. At the bottom of my request, I can actually see I now have 2 open tasks. I might decide, oh, that was silly. I don't want those tasks. I want to close them. I don't have to click in here and resolve both those tasks. Just a side note, you can't close a request if there are open R tasks. That make sense? All those tasks must be completed before the request record can actually be closed out. So I can actually go in here and double click on a cell and change that cell individually. Or, more fun, I can hold down, for example, Control and Shift, double click, and update 2 cells at the same time. So I'll teach you some keyboard shortcuts at the end to play around with this. Just want to point out that I can mark these closed complete or closed skipped and move on with my life. So there are a lot of little tricks to navigating the system. It's a very powerful database. Whenever you see these list views, you can interact with those records. And if it's an inappropriate update, it'll just stop you from doing it. That sound okay? So I just wanted to belabor that point. All right. So now we've worked this task. We're ready to communicate to the customer that the whole request is ready to be closed down. You guys okay with that? Excellent. There are two ways to do it. One would be to change the state to resolved and then update. The other would just be to click on resolve request. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure you understand all of the states. So you can watch me here. I'm going to click on this question mark. There are a couple different states that we're all being asked to learn. One of the new interesting ones is that of awaiting user info. How many people have ever sent out a request to a customer for information and had them never get back to us? Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. If you communicate to the customer with the request in this state, it's going to give them 5 business days to get back to us, and then it's going to automatically send a reminder that we're waiting on them. After 5 additional business days, it's going to close the request. They'll get another email that it was closed. We're going to train people to get back to us. If you're dealing with a VIP who maybe is going to send out a nastygram, you may not want to do that. But for a standard request, a customer doesn't get back to us, you're welcome to use this state. That's an efficiency. Scroll down a little bit. You can learn about some of these other states. Resolved, that's the state we're going to use when we respond back to the customer and we expect that this has been fulfilled. The customer has 3 days to get back to us. They can reply back or click to reactivate the record. If they don't do that within 3 days, the request will be marked closed. A request cannot be reopened in any way after it's closed. Maybe by a sysadmin, I guess, but it's not going to happen. If a customer wants to reopen a request after 3 days, they're going to have to click. They'll have a link. They can click and open a new request with us. That make sense? You might now see why we have a state of delivered. If you actually want to hear back from the customer before you move something into the resolved state and start the 3-day timer, you can actually leave it in the delivered state and then move it to resolved after you've communicated with the customer. That make sense? And that's industry standard to use the resolved and closed. The upside of having something permanently closed, how many people have had a customer respond to a 6-year-old ticket and reopen that over and over and over? They can no longer do that. They need to open up a new request record with us. All right. Let's go back here. Let's move our state to resolved. This is going to, now I just want to point out that I clicked on resolved. I can now have to ultimately click on update to close this out. I could have just clicked on resolve request. It would automatically set my state to resolve for me. So that's a useful thing. I'm required to put in additional comments to the customer. So I can't quietly close anything. In RT, we can quietly close here. We have to communicate to the customer whenever we resolve. We're also being asked to put in closure information. So we put in a close code. We'll put it in close complete. Everyone okay with that? So we've got 2 snippets of required information. Also on this closure tab, if I had spent quite a bit of time constructing a response to my customer and realized that this work should be part of our knowledge base for future use, I can click on knowledge. Once this is ultimately closed, this response will go into our knowledge workflow, and then the knowledge manager can approve it, and it can actually be approved for future use. That make sense? So I just wanted you to know that's there if you want to promote answers into the knowledge base. I'll deselect for now. Everyone okay with this? Great. I can now either click update or resolve. Both will be functionally equivalent. I've just communicated with the customer, and they have 3 days to object if they want to reopen it. I'll just make a final note on request. I also have the ability to move it back into an active state within 3 days before it gets closed. But as an IT worker, I can't do that beyond the 3 business days as well. All right. There's only one other thing that I neglected to show you here. Oh, literally 2, sorry. I'll show you both. Let's talk a tiny bit about knowledge. I'm going to keep this active just for fun and show you how to use the knowledge base. So anyone ever used the RTFM search in RT? It's okay. It's a little bit clunky. I don't like it a lot myself. I just want to point out that by the short description, we have the ability to click on this book icon. And if you also hit update on your request and lost it, you can click on your filter that you saved and come back to your request and follow along if you like. I'm going to click on that book icon. This is going to pop open a knowledge search. What you see there is a search of our entire knowledge base based on the subject line of the email. And you might realize, oh, the subject line that the customer provided is not that accurate. You can change the subject line and search on something else. I'm going to pull in here and go to a particular article and show you two ways to use knowledge. And there's very important differences between them. What I've done right now is I've clicked on a knowledge base article and I have it open. This is a particularly long knowledge base article, which is why I like to use it. You may decide that there's only a small portion of this article that you want to give to your customer. What I could do is copy and paste some text for them. So literally Control-C. Sound okay? I could go into my notes section, paste it in. I just wanted to point out here, the reason why I'm showing you that is that this has the downside of losing your formatting. So I'd have to go in here and pretty this up if I really cared about that. Okay. I'm going to show you, I'm going to actually hit save on that just to commit that answer to the database and communicate to the customer. Here I am still back in my knowledge base. Oh, actually, I think doing it this way will create a problem. I'll do it again. I'm back on that same article, the incidents article. It's really long. And if you look, it even has a formatted table, lots of cool stuff in it. I may decide that this entire article is exactly what my customer needs. Okay? If you have a short, highly formatted article, you may want to attach it in its entirety. You guys all see the Attach to Requests button. So if you open up a knowledge article from a request, you have the ability to attach it. I just want to show you what happens when you click on the Attach button. The entire formatted article shows up in the customer response. How many people love HTML? You'll be just fine with this. The rest of us, not so much. I can assure you that this will look fine because I've practiced with it and I know. So I'd only recommend that you attach articles that you have seen work, right? If it's from your knowledge base, you know that that's exactly what the customer should receive. I wouldn't go grab random articles and attach them because I can't see how this is going to render. That sound okay? I'd like to show you though, because I'm a trust but verify kind of guy, that if I do save and send this out to the customer, that the formatted HTML does tend to look just fine. So right now I'm in the log of this particular request, and I can see the long, thorough HTML formatted response that went out to the customer. So just keep in mind, attaching attaches everything. All right, just wanted to belabor that. The other thing that I sometimes neglect to show is you do have the ability to email outside the system, which is interesting. So if you look at the very top right, I can actually generate an email for this. I could send an email to someone like a related vendor or something, and actually a log of that email will be kept as well. So it does allow you some flexibility in your communication. I'll also note that if you generate an email, you can't see it on my screen, I apologize, maybe I'll move this down. You do have the ability to attach a file. So if you do need to send out an attachment to a customer, that would be the way to do it. Right beside the email icon in your top right, you do see a paperclip. You can add additional attachments. That would be attaching it to this request record. So for, if you want to attach other documents or artifacts to the record, that's not going to email out to the customer. Sound okay? You all know everything you need to know about requests, I believe. Phew. Okay. Incident management. So I'll just note, and before I move on into incident, I'll show you how to convert a request into incident. It's very easy to do. We can make tasks just like request, and for all intents and purposes, much of the incident functionality is going to be identical to request, so we're not going to belabor those points. The thing I'd like to show you today is the ability to activate on-call. So many people are on on-call rotations, maybe get emailed in the middle of the night sometimes or paged. We'll show you how to do that and interact with it. And then after that, we'll go through what is called a parent incident scenario. So if you ever have a big outage, you may have 2 or 50 or 500 tickets, right? If you manage that as a parent incident or with a parent incident, you have the ability to communicate to all of those customers at one time. You also have the ability to resolve all of those records at the same time as well. So if you have a bad day, you have an outage, the parent incident scenario is going to matter a lot to you. So we'll go through a quick demo of how to set that up. All right. I'll just make a note. Here I am on a request, and all records come in the front door as a request. If I were to look at this and say, oh, you know what, that's actually an incident, all I need to do is my magical right-click, and I can convert it to an incident. That's one of my options there. I can save, create a task, convert, and do other things as well. Everyone okay with that? I'm going to show you one other thing as well before I move on, because I'd feel silly not doing it. If you could all click on your bookmark to pull up your updated things and make sure you have your request open again. I apologize. I am imperfect. I forgot to show you how to use a template. I think templates are kind of fun. If you look at a request record, incident record, call record, you have the ability to apply templates. And if I go in there and start typing, I can find some templates I've already made. I'm going to assume you haven't made templates. So if you right-click on your gold bar, and the best part is once you go into production, it's going to be a blue bar. After I've trained you to click on the gold bar over and over, you right-click on the bar there. I have a template option, and I have the ability to take any record I've made and turn it into a template. So if I have, I created this response and realized I get this question all the time. I'd like to quickly apply this answer, apply these fields to all in the future. I have the ability to save this response as a template. Okay? So I click Save as Template. This is a little bit overwhelming. I'll just point out that if you go down this path, look at each and every row critically. Do I want to have this contact type applied? Do I want this specific description applied? Do I want that due date applied? So I can actually delete all the elements I don't want applied whenever I select this thing. And even the caller is pulled over. So be careful with your templates. Practice with them before you use them out in the wild. You also have the ability to add additional fields. So I can even have pre-configured work notes that I apply, like some troubleshooting steps, whenever I apply a template. So very, very powerful. I just wanted you to know that. And down here, I have the ability to save my template as a group. So I have a bunch of people in the room here that are on my team. If I were to save this to that assignment group, everyone in that group could use and apply my template. I'll make a note on group work. Everyone in the group is equal. So everyone in the group has the ability to also use, edit, and delete group templates. So play nicely. Make sense? If you go in and make some really cool templates that are mission critical, you could save a copy for yourself and a copy for your group as well if you're worried about people mucking about. That sound okay? Excellent. Again, I'll play around with that in your own time, or on UWIT's time, of course. Just a note, if you want to go down that road and make advanced templates, don't spend a ton of time making templates in eval. They're not going to transfer over. So if you're going to update the system and do a bunch of cool custom templates, go into production, make them there. Just want to make that caution. I'd hate to have you lose a bunch of work. That'd be sad. Okay. Now that I've talked about those last few points, I'm going to go back here to my application navigator and go to the incident application. And I'm going to click on Create New. With any luck, this is getting repetitive but easy for you. That's my intention here. I'm going to choose a configuration item, caller. There's one small change here from request. The assignment group does not auto-populate. That's by design. If you do not put in an assignment group, it's going to default to the UWIT Service Center, and they'll manage that incident. But for our purposes, I recommend that you use one of your assignment groups, a group that you're a member of. I'm also going to assign it to me because I want to be able to find this. And I'm going to say example for escalation. Can't talk today. There are a lot of other things you can do in here, but they're all repeats from requests, so I'm not going to belabor them. So I've got my mandatory fields in there, configuration item, caller, assignment group. I clicked on the add me, and I put in my short description. I'm going to click on save. So let's assume that I'm a tier 1 support desk person. I see this outage report saying, oh shoot, I need to get help here. I need an engineer. What I'd like to do is I could create an I task, and I have an image over here showing the I tasks in relation to an incident record. It's all the same as an R task. I could create a task and assign it to a group for resolution. Right? I could just sit there until someone takes it. That's totally fine. In this scenario, I'm going to show you how to actually contact someone through the task. So we all have a saved incident. Let's click on Create iTask. What this has done is pulled up a new incident task. The assignment group is pulled over. There's a lot of stuff here that should be very similar to you or feels very similar. I want to point out a new button that we have, and I'll ask that everyone stop and listen to me for a second, because I don't see a lot of eyes on me. I told you a lie earlier. I told you that the system doesn't send out any emails in eval. If you activate the on-call system, it is going to page someone. Okay? So here's where we don't want to play around. But if you need to test the system, you need to know it works, so you can actually go in here and do it. But if you're not a member of an on-call rotation, please don't grab something just to see what happens. That makes sense? You could wake someone up right now who's sleeping and working a night shift. We're all okay with that? Okay. All right. So you can follow along and click on on-call, but don't play around if you don't know what you're doing. Okay. I clicked on Contact On-Call, and so this is the mechanism you need to use if you wish to page someone and activate that system. By default, it says Contact a Group. So if you're a member of a team that actually has a rotation set up and a group of people, you can put that group in here. So I'll show you how that looks for those who aren't a member of a group or don't have one. I have a training rotation. If I were to click on OK, I'm not going to do that, by the way, and I advise you not to as well. If I click on OK, it's going to start paging that group. It's going to go down the list. It's going to contact the first person. After a predefined amount of time, it's going to contact the next person. And it's going to contact them based on their own personal preferences set up in the system. If you're a member of a team that has a training rotation, all of those have been imported in the system. And for future rotations, you need to edit and set those up in production. The actual editing of the rotations is beyond the scope of this, and I don't even know how to fully do it myself. We'll have help documentation available so that people that need to change their rotations and change their vacation schedules can do that. That make sense? So again, this is only for people who need to be escalated to. I'm going to show you guys an alternative that we all can do, just for fun. Instead of contacting a group, I could also choose to contact a user. Now, you may not be able to contact a user right now because you haven't set it up yet, but I'll show you how I can do it. If I start typing my name, I actually have, we're all individually set up as an individual on-call person. So you can literally type ahead and find your name if you wish. It's just not going to page you if you haven't set this up. That make sense? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that someone on my team desperately needs me and I'm out of the office. It could be during business hours or after. I'm going to click on OK. So that action has actually started the on-call. I don't get very good cell service in here, but as soon as I walk out of Mary Gates, I get a notification that the on-call has been activated, and I get a text because I set up my own personal preferences that way. So if I'm out and about, someone can contact me via this mechanism. That sound okay? So everyone can do that, and I'll show you at the end how to set that up if you so desire, if you want to get text. If you look in here, you can see a couple things that happened. The state was automatically set to escalating. It activated my own personal rota, as they call it. and it selected active contact. And in clicking OK, it actually saved the record and committed those changes. So if you look down here in the history, I can see Rhoda started. And if I right-click and save, or if I reload this form, that didn't happen that time. Generally speaking, it shows me as the target. So if it was cycling through rotation of people, it would show you the current target, the current person being paged. For some reason, it's not showing me now, but that's fine. And after it's happened, there might be a little delay here. Yeah, definitely a delay. It actually shows me when emails go out. So it'll show me that I got paged. Bam, bam. My personal preferences are to get paged twice. It will show 2 emails and 2 texts essentially going out to me. Everyone okay with that? Well, there's a small delay. It's usually immediate in my testing. Everyone okay with that process? I'm going to show you now how to go back and set this up properly. If you guys have an updated iTask, you don't have to initiate escalation if you don't wish, but you can create the iTask and then click on Update. That should take you back to the task record itself. Sorry, the incident record. For some reason, it didn't actually take, so I'll go back. All right, here I am on the incident record. One additional thing we have available to us here, I'll ask that you all look at the state of the incident. We have 2 new states available to us in incident. And now that we've actually escalated, I hope you understand the purpose of them. We can either set it to awaiting Tier 2 info or awaiting vendor info. These are 2 new states available to us, and they have automated processes built into them. I'm going to choose awaiting Tier 2. I'm going to right-click and save. So essentially what I've done, I've put on my help desk hat. I've contacted an engineer for help. I've put this incident into a state of awaiting Tier 2. I'm waiting for the engineer to get back to me, and I'm going to go back about my business. That make sense? You guys can stay on the record. I just want to make this a slightly more realistic scenario. I just want to go back to my home page. If I look at my work, let's assume I'm a Tier 1 agent, I'm working, I can see that I've escalated, and I can see the state is awaiting Tier 2. So I know nothing's happened. I don't have to go back to that record. If at any time someone updates that iTask or any iTask associated with that incident, that state will toggle back to active. That make sense? So I can just sit here and watch. I can watch and respond to other records and wait for that one to flip back to active. That sound okay? All right. I just got my page. I'm going to put on my engineer's hat again. I'll just even do a physical motion here. I've got a page. I just got woken up in the middle of the afternoon. And I'm going to go down and look at my incident task. The page or the email will have a link to the actual incident task itself. So if I'm responding to this escalation, I don't have to come back to the incident. I can go directly to the task and address it. Okay, I can see the work I need to do. In this instance, I didn't put in a description, so nothing copied over. I can stop on-call notifications, so I just can click on stop. That'll shut off the paging system. So if I'm responding in the middle of the night or middle of the afternoon, I can click on stop on-call, and it'll stop the system. Now I can read my description. I can provide my response, server rebooted. Change my state back to close complete and update it. That sound okay? Not particularly realistic, but a somewhat, oh yeah, I finally got my text. I usually don't get them down here, but today it worked. Everyone okay with this? Just wanted to point out that since I stopped the on-call and updated that record, the incident itself was toggled back to active. Any update to any task associated with this incident will toggle it back to active. We all okay with that? Okay. So we are just at about 11 a.m. I'd like to take a 10-minute break. At this point, you may actually be a bit fatigued. I've been having you make a lot of records. Hopefully it's not too bad. I'm going to go through a parent incident demo. If you don't think you're going to do this, you're also welcome just to take your hands off the keyboard and watch. I do require, though, that the folks on my team actually practice along, because you're going to be doing this, okay? So take a look at it. It's actually pretty straightforward. I just don't want you to struggle to watch and keep up. What I'm going to do is go back to the incident application, and I'm going to click on Create New, and I'm going to quickly put in some required information. Assign it to me. I'm going to say outage report number 1. Obviously, our clients aren't always this helpful, but I'll can this so I can easily see it. I am simulating what it would look like to have a client email in saying, help, there's an outage with your service. I'll go back to incident and create a second record as well. This is going to be the exact same thing. I wish I could actually copy, but I can't. It'd be kind of neat if I could copy 2 incidents. Assign it to me. Call it outage report number 2. So let's assume I'm working a help desk, and I'm sitting there at my desk playing Tetris, and I see 2 outage reports come in. I realize, uh-oh, something bad has happened. Maybe some of you can sympathize or empathize. Imagine 100, 200, and we know they're all related. This certainly happens to a lot of us. My goal here is to triage as necessary, but also manage this scenario as a parent incident. Okay? So what I'm going to do, and again, let's have a mental break. Forget I just made those 2 records. Okay? I'm sitting at the help desk. I see 2 came in, and I decide I'm going to manage this incident as the incident manager. The procedure will be to go over to incident and create new. Here I'm going to assign the important information. I'm going to make my incident manager the actual caller, because I don't want a civilian to be on the parent incident. I'm just going to make the manager that. I'll assign this to myself, and I'm actually going to type in parent. I talked to Mike Houlihan about this. He actually does recommend that you type in parent so that you know this is going to be the parent incident where we manage the situation. I can then click Save. I'll go back home, just take a look. In my work, because I've assigned these to me, which is why I'm kind of belaboring that point, I can clearly see the 2 client reports and the parent incident I've just created to manage them. There are 2 ways now. Clearly, we need to create a relationship with them. Calling it a parent doesn't make anything. Just like calling myself a parent doesn't mean anything. Having kids does, though. So I'm going to highlight and copy this incident number. Clearly, my copy karma is bad today. 15317. I'll try to remember that instead. I'm going to go into the first outage report, and I'm going to create this linkage. So I can look in here, I can read it and read the description that's not here, and say, oh, yep, definitely related to that. I can say, hi, Jake. We will give you an update shortly, right? So I still can respond to this customer individually, but I'd like to manage this record via the incident. So under related records, I can go in here and add in the parent incident. If I had copied it, I could paste it in. I also can do a search. So in here, I could, for example, search based on number. If I go in, I should have done 15317. Is that correct? I believe so. There you go. So my memory isn't too bad. I could search on other parameters and find it, or again, I could have just pasted in that incident number if my copy karma had been good. So what I can do is actually go through each incident as it comes in the front door, look at it, make sure that it's related, assign a parent incident, and update it. I also, though, just to hammer this point home, have the ability to update that individual customer from this child incident. So once I create this relationship, I'll refer to this one as the child. I can still go to this child and communicate with this individual customer. I'll click Update. I've done two things. I've communicated with the customer and also assigned that parent record. Excellent. This is perfect. Now back on my work, and you can see the update functionality, right? It brought me back to wherever I was before. Now you can clearly see that outage report number 1 has been linked to this parent incident. Not so much? Nope, nope. Okay, so remember back when I told you can filter everything based on the task table and see everything? There's one critical limitation of filtering on everything. It doesn't show parent-incident relationship. So if you ever expect yourself to be using parent-incident functionality, that's a really important point to note. And if not, you can promptly forget it. So if I'm going to be using parent-incident functionality, I need to be working from the incident table. So you can see here, my work under my records is pulling from the task table. So I can see outage report 1, 2, and parent. And that's the default view. If I were to go down to my group's incidents, instead, I have incident table, and I can also see the parent incident. So you can see someone else in my group who's been building this out and using parent incident as well. Everyone see that? So that's an important point to make. I'll go back to my home page and just note down here under my group's incidents, I can see all of my relevant information. I'll go back and sort on number, and I'm losing it. Did I assign it to my group? Oh, I sometimes get in the wrong group. I apologize. It happens to everyone. I'm going to go down to incidents, and another way to solve this problem is to go on incident assigned to me. So here we can see outage report 1, 2, and parent. So I'll just work from this view so it's easier to see. So now that we've used the system a little bit, you can also see that I have a blank field, and I can just double click in there and start typing. So this is where it's really powerful. If I wanted to update 100 records at once, I could actually click and drag across all of them, and in that action, associate them with a parent incident. So if you're going to do this, it's really important. So if any of you could just go grab, go look at any list right now with me. So you could click on My Group's Incidents and see a list view. I'm going to do it under the incident assigned to me. I would like everyone to practice with this particular keyboard. Hold down the Windows key and Shift. And you can actually go in and drag across multiple cells. And you see how it gets a light blue color? And you have the ability to double click and update. I think this would be an illegal update, by the way. It'll give me an error, so I'm not going to try it. Everyone able to do that? There's another trick. That was a continuous drag. You can also do a Control Shift. If you all hold Control and Shift together, you can actually click on non-contiguous cells, kind of like in Excel. Double click, and I can update 3 non-contiguous cells as well. You're okay with that? I'll have to admit, I always forget which keys to hold, so I just start mashing on the keyboard until I figure something out. Everyone okay with that trick? Excellent. There's also another trick. If you hold Control and I keep forgetting which one it is. Someone told me it. Nah, it doesn't work. There's another way to do it as well. I don't know that trick. Okay, in this particular scenario, all you care about is associating these 2 incident reports or outage reports with the parent. So all I have to do is highlight the 2 cells, double click. I double clicked in the one that had been updated already. You may have noticed that little trick. So it retained the number. If I click on this little checkbox, the green check, it's going to assign it. So now I've created that parent-incident relationship. Everyone okay with that? So you can now see why I've labeled this parent and why I'm looking at the incident table I know that if I go into this individual incident, the child incident, I can communicate to one customer. If I go into the parent, I will be communicating to 2 customers. That make sense? All right. I'll go into the parent. The description is only for this field. I'm going to go down to my additional comments and say, this is an update from the service center. I'll note that this customer visible comment is going to propagate out through all of the child incidents. I do also have the ability to submit work notes, which would also push work notes to the log of all of those child incidents if I wish to communicate to other people on the teams. I could even push an engineering update independent of customer communication, right? I may be managing an incident where child incidents are out in other groups as well, and I'm helping them out. So I'll click on Update. Because I expect that you don't trust me, or at least you're trust but verify kind of people too, I'm going to go into a child incident and show you what it looks like. Down here in the log, I can see that work notes were copied from the parent incident, so this would be an indicator to the help desk folks. And here's the update that went out to each and every customer on those child incidents associated with this parent. Everyone okay with that? So I'd expect anyone who ever expects to use parent incident functionality to come in here, play around with it, make sure that the workflow makes a lot of sense to you before you learn in front of a live audience. All right, let's go back. Again, I'm clicking on Update. I have customized my incident table. And if you're going to do something like this, I would actually recommend you do the same. I went in here and clicked on the gear icon, and I put in an interesting header. It says active child tasks. And from an incident manager standpoint, this is going to be critical for me. I'll just point it out for you in case any of you do this. Remember how I said you can't close a request or an incident if it has open tasks? My goal here is to go into the parent incident and close down 100 incidents. If any of those incidents have open tasks, they aren't going to close. That make sense? So by adding this field, I can see if any of those on my entire list have open tasks. I have the ability to go in and address them. Maybe that task is not really relevant. I can go close it down. That make sense? So just wanted to point that out. It's really important information. Now, that being said, the system does handle it gracefully. If you have 100 linked child incidents and one of them has an open task, it will resolve 99 of them, throw an informative error. It will still communicate out to the 100th incident, and you have to go close that one individually. That make sense? So it's not catastrophic. It's just an annoyance. Excellent. I'll go into my parent. I'll assume that I've restored service. And I would like to communicate the additional comments out to all of those customers and also resolve this incident. I'll go in here to, I could do state is resolved and then click update, or I can just click on the resolve button. By clicking on resolve, it does warn me that I need both my comments to the customer and my closure information. Close code is solved, close notes, reboot. Again, the incident process owner requires that we put in close notes for all incidents, just so we collect that information. I now can either click on update or resolve. Because of where I'm at here, I know that they're the same button essentially. I already have the incident set to resolved, so I could click on either one and it will shut it down. Okay. Here I am back at my list of incidents, and nothing shows up, which is great. I'll just make a point here because it is actually best practice and it is a new process for some of us. I am looking at a list of incidents that are assigned to me, and neither of those incidents show up. I want to point out that I can modify this particular list. So you guys see as I hover over these greater than symbols, I can actually modify my filter as I go. That make sense? This actually should have returned all of those incidents. You notice I'm looking for all incidents assigned to me. You may have already noticed this as we're working through this. Whenever you resolve a record, you're scrubbed from the record. You're no longer assigned that record. I know in my group that's common practice to release the ticket. Here, whenever you resolve a record, you are no longer in the assigned to field. That way, if a customer reopens it, it goes back to the group and someone else can take it. Does that make sense? That's best practice that's being enforced across the whole org. You look like you have a question, Jason.
Why when I click assign to me, does it say state resolved as a template?
Yeah, so it doesn't want to find things that are resolved. So the default templates don't show you things that are resolved. The funny thing about RT is it behaves the same way. We just don't know it. A lot of the automaticity behind the scenes in RT, they don't show us these resolved tickets. This system at least is showing you very literally that it's not showing you resolved tickets. It's very easy to modify that to show you those that have been resolved. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's one thing I like about it. There's a lot of transparency in here in our filters and the way we interact with it. Okay, that was a brief demo. I also just wanted to show you how to use these breadcrumbs. I can go back to incidents all, and I can literally see all 3,800 incidents that UW IT has in the system right now. So I can build out from there. I believe I showed it to you before, but once you get advanced with this system, it is quite fun. You could be scrolling through here and say, oh, I see someone assigned to Tyler Fox. If I right-click, I can go show matching. And I can actually build a filter on the fly from any element in my drop-downs. And I can also interact with it and delete elements as I go. So play around with it. It's actually quite fun. Well, as far as database work goes, it's fun. So keep that in mind. Any questions about incidents? We're all okay? Great. We're going to talk only briefly about problems. How many people know about problems? So some people know already. Other people don't want to know about it. The goal here is to essentially divorce the information in an incident from that particular record and put it in a new problem record for analysis and investigation. So we can resolve our incident, restore service, but keep that problem record lingering until we actually solve the underlying root cause of it. We may have rebooted the server to restore service, but we need engineers to figure out why we had to reboot that server and why we have to reboot it every week. We're going to do a very basic demonstration, nothing terribly fancy for today. If you were to go in and grab an incident, you guys could go into your records and see my group's incident. I could go in there, for example, and click on an incident I've already created. If you would do the same, that'd be great. If you look at any incident, you may say, yep, we're going to resolve this one, but we need to track this further. You can right-click and select Create Problem. The problem with what I just did is I chose one that already has a problem made. You can only do this one time. That makes sense? So I'll show you how you know that. If I right-click in my menu, I should see Create Problem up at the top. And on my related records for this particular incident, I can see I've already linked it to a problem. That makes sense? So I'm going to scrub that, save. All right. So I can go into any incident I want and select Create Problem. This isn't going to communicate to the customer. Well, I'll make a note just because I like to be complete. If I had information in the Customer Visible Comments section and Create Problem, that would technically generate an email to the customer, right? Creating this problem would also save the record and email the customer, but that would be kind of sloppy to do that. So I selected Create Problem. You'll see that I can put in a description, a workaround, and some notes. Problems behave just like incidents and requests. I can have tasks and lots of fun stuff. You'll note one prominent absence here. There's no way to communicate to a customer via problem, and that's a good thing. What I've done with this incident is I've taken all the incident information, all of the log information, and pushed it over to the problem, and we can analyze this and work it all by itself and not worry about the customer side of it. That sound okay? The general expectation is that Tier 2 engineering groups and service managers are going to log problems and track them. If you go to the bottom of your problem, you'll see that any incidents that have been attached to this problem will also be listed here. And if you have a problem that's lingering for weeks, months, years, over time, I can click on Edit on this incidents list and go and find more incidents and keep attaching them. So if I realize it's a recurring problem, an ongoing problem, I can keep using that over and over. I can also paste in the problem number on the Related Records tab of any incident to make this association as well. That make sense? It's not expected a lot of people will use it right away, but this is one of the only ways to link records in the system. So you may decide, oh, I need a way to track these related issues. That actually sounds like a problem to me. I might want to try that out. Okay. I don't want to create problems where they don't exist. Let's talk a little bit about home pages. Usually at this time in the presentation, people are quite tired. And so all the stuff I'm going to be showing you right now is the fun stuff. So with any luck, if you do drift away, you'll still be fine. So right now, you have the ability to take any home page we've given you and essentially customize it and make it on my page. Okay? For members of my staff, I'll ask that you not do that. We'll all use the same page, just so you know. So what we're going to do here is create a custom home page. I'm going to assume that you're looking at that home page and saying, I don't want my incidents and requests and everything split out. I'd like to have everything in one big bucket. So I'll show you a way to construct that home page. Sound okay? So I'll click on the, yeah.
So whatever I do here today for my page is going to transfer.
It's not going to transfer over. All this is just for fun.
Okay.
So don't spend a ton of time on custom home pages, custom filters, templates, any of that stuff. In the future, work in production will get cloned back to this. But right now, this is all for fun. We're not emailing anyone, and none of our work is going to be saved, essentially. So yeah, don't make a lot of fun home pages. OK, here I am on the home page. Everyone have something similar to this? I could jump right in and click on the Add Content button in the top left. Instead of doing that, I'm going to show you another way to interact with it. What I'd like to do is keep my work at the top, because I think having the stuff I'm assigned is probably pretty important at all times at the top. What I want to do, though, is get rid of these other extraneous areas. So what I can do is click on this little X at the top right of each of these sections. So if you guys want to delete my group's incidents, requests, and tasks, by clicking that X 3 times, I've essentially created a My Home page. You can see at the top it now says My Home page, and it's only showing my work. That sound okay? I'd like to change the name of my home page. A little trick I've learned is to click on the refresh button first, or refresh your browser. This is a place where refreshing your browser is okay. After a refresh, you can double click and call it whatever the heck you want. If you try to change the name before a refresh, it won't stick, and that's frustrating. So now you'll see the original home page, and in this instance, Jake's page above it. You all have the ability to do that. If you haven't refreshed, it'll just say My Home page in the top of the list there. Excellent. OK, so now we want to construct, in order to put additional custom content in here, we first have to construct a filter that's going to define the records that should be displayed here. That make sense? All right. Let's go back to the My Records portion of our application navigator. It's always a great place to start. I'll note that these up here, incidents and requests, are only going to pull from those tables. But if we go down to unassigned work, that's a great starting point for custom filters. And I'm going to, again, expand that caret, which shows my filter builder. So I'm starting with unassigned work, and I'm expanding my filter. It's basically the same thing we did before. You can see I'm building this filter from the task table. So it's going to show all incidents, requests, problems, and tasks, which can be useful. But again, won't show parent incident functionality. So now you got the full spectrum of the system. In this instance, I'm going to delete the assigned to as empty. And right now, this filter is essentially showing all the records in all of my groups. Now, if I'm a service manager or maybe a service owner, I could even go in and just choose groups that aren't mine. I could just choose assignment group is and choose a specific group I want to watch. Does that make sense? So I can watch things that I'm not a member of as well. Is dynamic, though, automatically creates a filter that shows all of my assignment groups. Everyone okay with that one? All right, let's click on the Save button. I'll note that we have 2 Save buttons visible, which is a source of frustration. I'll show you how to interact with that. Click Save As and call it something useful. You can call. I like to call it all of my groups. I'll just point out that you can't have 2 group names, or sorry, 2 filter names that are the same. It'll delete it. So don't be careful when you're doing that. I'll choose all of my groups too. I do have the ability to save it to an entire group. So for example, if I wanted to push out a filter that's visible to a lot of people, I could do that. And now I'm going to choose to hit Save. Not save on the top left, but save on the middle, top middle. You guys all see that? Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous. I'll click Save. Excellent. Yeah, if you click the other Save, nothing happens. You're like, what the heck? Yeah. I don't know. I've learned to get by some of those minor annoyances. Okay, over here on My Records, you guys all see the My Records application. You can see that if you made any templates as you're going through this, you could find all of your templates and those templates that have been saved with you or saved to your groups. We can also click on Filters. So with any luck, you should see the filter you just made in the list of your filters. One source of frustration, though, is you can't run your filters from here. So if you click on these, it's just going to show you the actual filter and not the results. So just want to point out that limitation. Everyone able to find your filter? I'll just note that the filter I just made is made against the task table, and that's noted there. If you scroll down, you might see that I may have other filters that are made just against the request table. So this is also a way to find out where your filters are. Okay, I'm going to show you 2 ways of using this filter. Let's all start from My Records and My Work. Do you all see the Task button? All right, that's showing that I'm at the task table. If I click on that, I can select Filters and choose the filter I just made. So that would be one way of pulling up my filter and reusing it. And if you have a whole ton of filters that you've saved for custom searches or group filters, this would be the primary way you would actually activate them. Click on that button. And also if you have a touch device, touching tasks, filters, it exposes all of them. It's an important way to interact. It's impractical to put all of your filters over on the Power Edge, so it's important to know how to get to all of them. So that's one way to use that filter. Let's go back to our home page. Daniel. On the tablet view, you can't see the Power Edge. The only way I've found to actually access my filters is to tap on that context menu, Filters, and apply the filter.
But not like mobile phone.
Mobile phone, you can also use saved filters. Yeah. So for mobile, saved filters are also going to be very important. I'll make a note. We haven't yet configured, we, meaning the team, not me, hasn't yet configured the mobile device, so you really shouldn't be using your phone on it just yet. Okay. All right, so we're all back at the home page. What we'd now like to do is add that custom filter with all of our groups' work right here. So if you click on Add Content, the top left there, I have to be patient. This is one of the only parts of the system that's consistently slow. I have a whole bunch of content in this first left-hand menu. You're welcome to check them out. I haven't found anything that's useful. I can say that frankly. I'm going to click on Filters, the very last option on your left-hand pane. And from there, I have the ability to select all of my filters. Just note that in this second row, it's actually asking you which table would you like to find this filter from. So for a lot of your filters, you're going to find them on the task table. Filters, task. And here's why I'm stressing that word task when we're looking for tables and filters. You can see here I have all of my groups. That's the filter at the top. Hopefully you can find the filter you just made. Is everyone finding something useful? I actually get a real-time view of the results of that filter, literally from the database. And I have 4 different positions I can add this element to. I've got my work at the top, so I'm going to choose the bottom full width insertion point, and that will stick it below my work. It actually added it in behind my pop-up window, and if I was building out a page, I could go find more filters and stick them anywhere I want. Since I'm done, I'll click on the X, and now I have a custom home page that shows my work at the top and all of my group's work below that. So I can see what I need to do, and I can see what everyone else is doing down here. That sound okay? You might have things turning in your head saying, maybe I'd like to look at all of the work for a single assignment group or a single service in particular filters. You can build home pages that display those data as well. That sound okay? Great. Have fun with it. If you're on a service team that would like to have a custom home page and have everyone on that team have the same home page, what you can do is, as a service manager, build out a page, decide, yep, this is perfect, and if you contact the team, just email help@you with a request, that could be made a default for everyone on that service team. That make sense? Okay. Phew. We're almost there, I promise. Reports. How many people are excited about reports? Mark, I see better at least. Okay, a couple people. Good. I know at this time in the day, it would be physically impossible for me to teach you how to build an advanced report, right? Unless you're a machine. I found it to be quite rewarding to play around with this. I spent a couple hours on it, and I was very pleased with the results. So I'll give that small pitch. I haven't read the manual yet, so I don't know how to do that. But I'll show you what I did to learn how reports work. And what I'd like to do is show you a useful report that you can cannibalize and alter for your purposes. That sound okay? I'd like for everyone to go into your application navigator and scroll down to the reports application. You have the ability to click on View Run. In this window, you're going to see a dizzying array of reports. I could scroll, but you'll just have to trust me, there are hundreds. On the left-hand side, what you are seeing are globally available reports. You could click on any of them and save a version for yourself. So if you were to take any of these on the global reports and edit and save, they would show up over in the My Reports section. That make sense? You would essentially version it for yourself. If you were to take an edited report and save it with one of your groups, it would then show up in this lower group report section. That make sense? If you look down in group reports, you can see a My Groups records in last 2 months. This is an example we've been using for demos in large labs. That's why you see lots and lots of copies of this report. These reports are all made by people who didn't listen to my instructions. So don't let that be you. Nothing catastrophic happened, though. So if you guys want to follow along, you can go over to the group report section in the bottom right and click on My Groups records in last 2 months. Any one of them should be fine. I'll have to admit that the construction of the report took a little bit of experimentation from my perspective. I basically played around with all the parameters in all of my groups until I found something useful. If you're the read the manual kind of person, the ServiceNow wiki has pages and pages of documentation. I'm more of a click on every button until something works kind of guy. One thing that's important is that this report was made visible to everyone who's a member of the IDLE group, which means all 700 UWIT employees. And do you remember that caution I made earlier? Any edit to a group report edits that report for everyone. That make sense? So just be cautious. Let's scroll down. You can actually see what this report is. This is a 2-month report, and those parameters can be tweaked, showing a week-by-week breakdown of record volume amongst all of my assignment groups stacked. My boss used to pester me for this report or some version of this report every week at the beginning of the term, and now I could just say, hey, go look at it yourself. This is a job I didn't want to have. If I click on any element in here, it will actually take me to the database and show me the database query that resulted in that segment of the report. So it's interactive and very powerful. I'll click back And this is one of those situations where clicking the back button in your browser takes you exactly where you were. So I find this to be a personally useful report, and it's showing all of my assignment groups. You might say, oh, I'd like to construct something similar for an individual service offering. You could actually start asking different questions based on this stock report, or what is now a stock report. If you'd like to actually take a version of this for yourself, again, we're only in eval. I haven't yet made it in production, but we'll figure that one out. All you have to do is follow along. Remember, if you muck about in here and hit save, you've literally saved this group report for everyone. What I'd like you to do is click on Visible to Me right here. And don't click Save. I like to tell people what not to do. If you click Save, it will take this group report and move it over so it's private only to you. Here's where you'll have to learn a little bit of a ServiceNow-ism. If you click on Insert, that effectively makes a copy of it. And since you've modified it, if you click Copy, it's going to insert a copy just for you alone. That make sense? Something you need to play around with. So here's how you would maybe make something for yourself. Decide, wow, this is really useful. Make a tweak to it. For example, show it to a group of users on your team and insert a copy that they can view. That way you have a personal copy and a group copy in case someone deletes it. That make sense? So I wish Insert said something other than that, but that's something we all have to remember. So if you want a copy of this report for yourself, modify the visibility so it's only visible to you, and click Insert. Everyone okay with that? So I just wanted to give you just a little teaser on what you can do with reports. I hope that after a few weeks you all know about reports more than I do, because I just know enough to create that one report. As an aside, I started from scratch. I went way down here, all the way down to tasks. Whoa, something's wrong. And I started with the My Group's Work task report. I started from that base report and started playing around. Make sense? I'll show you one other thing that's kind of fun. If you were to go into any saved filter or any list, for example, if I pull up a filter here, let's say I have 44 records, and I would like for this to be a report. You don't have to do fancy reports. Any filter of our database could effectively be a report. If I right-click on any header, I also have the ability to export this view of the data to, obviously, Excel, comma separated, or PDF. So any list view is also exportable and is, in effect, an informal report. Any questions about reports? They can be scheduled. They can be emailed out. They're quite fun. Phew. We're ready to go into production. So what we're going to do, I'll just make a note. All changes to the system should be made in production in the future, right? If you want to update your notification preferences, reports, or anything else you want to keep, make those changes in production. All we have to do is delete eval from our URL, and we'll be in production. It should be pretty visible based on the blue banners, so we shouldn't be confused when we're in production versus eval. Emails are live here. We're not really supposed to be making records for fun, but if you did make a record where you were a customer in here, it will be emailing out. So if you have great need of testing out the system, it's at your disposal. It's the 25th right now, so there are groups, Knock and Cops, automated monitoring systems, they're actually using it as of today. Most of us are going to cut over on July 8th for our large volume, and some of the smaller groups, like Marcus is there, are actually using it live right now. So be sensitive in here. The primary purpose of this part of the workshop is to point out that on the top left it says welcome and your name. You can click on your name, and this gives you the ability to edit your own preferences and contact information. So for example, I've got some contact up there. It's pulling from the UW directory. I added a second number for fun. More importantly, there's a link down here for your notification preferences. So if you could all click on yourself and then click on notification preferences under related links, this is going to show you For me, I have a lot more defaults for some reason. Some of you have fewer. Here's where you would go to tweak the way the system notifies you. If you could all click on primary email with me. This is going to show that my UW email address, which is incorrect here, I should probably update that, is that. And if I wish to be emailed as an on-call mechanism, so if I'm actually an on-call person and I wish to be emailed whenever an on-call is activated from my group or me, I need to select this on-call method checkbox. By default, it's not selected. Some people notice the order information. That's a lie. All of your contact information gets contacted simultaneously regardless of order. So everyone able to double check their primary email. After that, I direct you all to the new device button in the top right. The new device button is where you would set up a pager or a cell phone if you want to get text or anything like that. So I could give it a name. I could, for example, have the type be SMS or voice. If I put in my cell phone number and any provider, it's going to send me text messages if the appropriate actions occur. If I choose it as an on-call method, which is what I did in eval, that's how I got texts whenever I was contacted as an on-call person or through the escalation system. Does that make sense? So this is really important for those who expect to get on-call notifications, that you go in and set up your devices and select them as an on-call method. I'll make another note because I forgot to earlier. If you are escalating to an engineer, be kind to them. Make sure the short description is something that's useful. If you give a long IP address and you select voice as the type, it will literally read that out loud to the person in the middle of the night, and they may not think that very kind. Is that an okay thing to remind you if you are an escalator? I know COP staff know that, so hopefully that'll be avoided. So avoid long numerical short descriptions if you are getting these things.
So it'll call the person and read what it types?
Yeah. Yep. I know that Google Voice does work as a provider. You can choose SMS, put in your Google Voice number. Just choose any old service provider. This is a requirement that you put something in there, but it doesn't matter which one you put in there. Is that okay? So yeah, it's interesting. We're using Twilio as our provider, and so they handle all that for us. We don't have to think about it. I'm going to cancel out because I don't wish to configure that right now. Any questions about that? So again, make sure your devices are all registered in production. Here's where you can go in and play around with your actual notifications. A lot of these are customer oriented. So we've hit the end. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of information here. Sometimes people have a question about what the customer will actually see. With each notification from us, they'll get a link back to our portal, and it's going to be an IT Connect. So UW Connect does not exist to them. They don't care what we call it. For them, all of their service requests will be visible in IT Connect, and whether it's an incident or a request, to them it's simply a service request, and that's an important distinction. They don't care. If they click on any of these individual elements, they can go in, they can see the status at the top, they can see the most recent version of the description, whatever you've edited. They have the entire history back and forth, and at the bottom, they have the ability to type a response to us as well. So if you were actually a caller on a record, you could go into IT Connect-test and do the back and forth right now as well. Question in the back. I don't know when it goes from test to production. I was guessing July 8th, but I don't know that actual answer. I apologize. Since we're only doing automated monitoring systems right now, I don't see the need for that just yet. But I don't know the official answer. I apologize. Yeah. Okay, here's my general caution. There's still time. Schedule service teams to talk about your workflows. What will we actually do when something comes into our assignment group? There's still time to figure that out. You can email help@uw.edu. And for example, if you want to consult with a member of the support team, Bill's in the back. Someone from the training team can also help you. A reminder of our cutover dates. We're actually at this first one, July 8th for most of us and July 15th for CTE. We have a great deal of additional documentation available online via those little question marks, and we will put training videos in there soon as well. What I mean by that is in the top right, you have a little question mark. We often overlook help, but all these documents have been made for you. And I'll put some copies of videos in here as well if you want to go review anything or miss something from the training. Any questions?